Here was, let me introduce Team Yevgrashyn, Director of Business Agility at Doodle, an outstanding speaker, trainer, agile consultant, lean agile thinker, and many more, with his experience sharing a story about Doodle's journey with Kanban. Team, you're welcome.
Hello, thank you for introduction. I'm really glad to see a lot of people I know, and thank you everyone who put efforts into organization. Speakers, it was glad to see some of old friends here, and I hope I see maybe some people among participants, but I don't see you. So let me start with my screen, and while I do technicalities, I do understand that most probably it's a lunchtime. I do understand that people might be listening this on the go. I'm trying to make it simple. So it's all started with a simple chat between me and Taras, like, okay, I would like to share some practical insights that I had and something that helped me. And Taras said, okay, why don't you tell a story? And the story will be connected to the company where I'm working, but also it's connected to the practical knowledge related to Kanban maturity model. And at this moment, Taras, I will ask you to start the poll. So I guess that should pop up somewhere in your screen. And Taras, do we have? Yes, thank you. I see it. So we ask.
I'll be doing that for you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So please answer while I'm doing an introduction, and it will help me to calibrate my talk. Also, give me some understanding of the audience. And once again, why I'm telling. Thank you, Anna, for explanation. And I've been in IT industry since 1996, and I'm originally from Kiev. I live in Berlin for the last 6 years, and I was in management position since 2000 somewhere, and all this time worked in international companies, was one of the first managers in Cyclum, and naturally at some moment I started to share my knowledge, and from somewhere 2010 I was sharing my knowledge in form of trainings, consultancy, coaching, but I also like to work with companies, and I work with companies in director or any other position for last 6 or more years, and it gives me a deep dive into experience with one company. And Kanban maturity model helped me, and that's what I want to share. So at first I just wanted to make a walkthrough, but also beside of this, I will use Doodle as an illustration. And I will use it as a light illustration. I'm not going to go into all details. How do we work? How do we live? Feel free to ask questions. In the middle, I will do kind of a quick check if we have questions related to what I've said already. And then I want also to prove that all Ukrainians are good at memes. So this is my favorite meme about Kanban. Many people I met, especially in consultancies, they say, oh yeah, we do Kanban. Okay, we have a board. And that's often starts a very interesting conversation. So of course, sometimes people start arguing, and we should always remember Kanban is a method, not a methodology, right? At this moment, Anna, please close the poll. So let's see the results. Let's see the results of the participants. How do you feel? Yeah, thank you. Great. So more than half of people never heard about Kanban maturity model. Great. So at least I'll help you to get familiar with it, and maybe you will get interested to learn more. So some people read about this, and some people have some experience, so that's great. So some people have experience like myself. Frankly, I don't feel I'm biggest expert. And here I will need to say that a little bit of disclaimer. I am not related to any official Kanban school. I started my journey early enough. I learned a lot, and as we all know, especially in the morning, Henrik gave a good overview. So the whole movement of process change, ways of working change started way before 2001, before Agile came to the game. But also we should remember that Kanban, as a first book by David Anderson, was published around, I guess, 2010 or 11. So in some way, the Kanban method, as we know it now, came later, but at the same time, it's based on the very deep roots, even maybe deeper than everything we talk about Agile. And in this case, it's very interesting. Today, we see kind of maturing of some advices and best practices related with Kanban. And I definitely recommend to look to multiple ways. So as you can see, I was privileged to learn from multiple sources, and I will be referencing Kanban University, but I'm not associated with them besides being participant of their trainings. I also really been inspired by works of Klaus Leopold, Mike Burrows have a wonderful books, and sometimes people from this community, they do cooperate. Sometimes they have own academies, own ways of teaching Kanban, but at the end of the day, they're talking about the same. So that's important. And as you can see, all of them supported Ukraine right from the beginning of the invasion. And first of all, of course, they stopped business with Russia. And for some of them, that might be a big part of the business, but still, they did this move. And also, it's important beyond some donations and all this stuff, they definitely supported professionals. Like today we are on professional event, and I know that each of these academies and universities and schools, they offered special conditions for Ukrainian students. So if you in the moment feel that you need to learn more to help your company, your country, especially if you still stay in Ukraine, so please contact them. I think they all open to help support. Some of them said, okay, you donate and then you get for free and so on. So take a look. And once again, I'm not representing any of them, but at the same time, I do follow them for like almost 20 years, since the beginning of some of them. And first time I took my Kanban maturity model, it's called Kanban Evolution. So it's an advanced class about Kanban. I took it first time in 2019. At this moment, the book was actually a little bit smaller. So the first edition of the Kanban maturity model was a small book. And now you can see the size of this book. And in 2019, I've got this big poster. It has a lot of good ideas, like if you're on this maturity level, do that with the boards and so on. Nice, but I didn't get how to use it. And it took me another year, and I participated in the similar class once again, because I had this opportunity. And then Kanban maturity model was already represented in a better way, and the language, the communication was a little bit more clear. And this online version, Kanban maturity model plus, emerged. And I think for me personally, that was the biggest shift when I started to look and pay attention to Kanban maturity model, because this is an interactive version of the book. It has very good visuals, and many of you have seen in the internet posters and so on. So they're produced as part of this content. And also you can click on many of them and go down to the book. So the whole book actually is like 2 chapters with details. And today I will get some inspiration from these chapters. And then the rest of the book is not a glossary, but a big body of knowledge that you can reference. You don't have to read it through. So that's important. So for me personally, a big help, and maybe like the best investment in a year was subscription, individual subscription to this website, which gives me access to all the knowledge I need. So maybe enough of prerequisites. So what is Kanban maturity model? So again, at first it started as a set of practices, but of course, many of you familiar with maturity models like PMI and something. Every maturity model tries to explain, okay, this maturity model assumes some aspects and most often practices. So that was the reason. First, I was looking to practices, but then, especially this picture was introduced, it explains a lot. Practices shift your culture. So when you start doing something, you might see some more advanced practices. So you try to get a bit more advanced with day-to-day work, and that shifts your culture, enables some better understanding. And of course, if reflection is a part of your culture, then of course you see the change, and you will see the change in outcomes. In my career, I spent more than 10 years helping companies to go, as I was usually referencing, from 0 to 1. We will see later what 0 means in maturity levels in Kanban, and I didn't have special reference, but 0 to 1 is usually the moment when you do revolutions, the moment when you embrace some methods, when you bring trainers, and sometimes it's painful. Many people call it transformation, but I would call it sometimes revolution. Some companies really need this. So every company which was established before 2001, they might be already big and not agile. Many companies established after 2001, they got agile naturally. So in this case, Kanban maturity model helps to look through your company with these 3 aspects. And how do we do things? Okay, here's a practical guidance, and we will see that some practices, if you don't have enough maturity, they will be too artificial. Your company, your people, management will reject them. Whatever you invest in trainings, it will be pushed back. That changes the culture. How do we live? And that's important. In Kanban, they usually talk about culture from still way of working, teams, and so on. In my context, I usually talk about broader meaning of culture, but still you will see, and in my story about Doodle, I will a little bit reference about company culture, but maybe very important disclaimer is that, of course, you have deeper things in your company cultures that may prevent any change, any evolution, or maybe something that will support this significantly. In case of Doodle, it was our company values. They've been developed just a little bit before I joined the company in 2020. And one of the first values we have in the company, it's called collaboration. If everyone in the company exposes this value, and we always check new candidates, how do they behave and do they share the same values and so on, it was probably a big piece of success for us in this evolution. And of course, outcomes, we will see outcomes actually gives you some notions that you pass at the level. So there's no clear litmus test or assessment or something that says you are on the level 2 or maybe on the level 2.5. Usually I reflected where we are now and I understood, oh, we already passed the level. And usually you see it by outcomes, and that's how it all works together. And here maybe a few words about Doodle, a little bit of shameless promotion maybe. I hope you have heard about the company. If not, go and visit the website doodle.com. And Doodle is famous because we help scheduling, we help people organizing everything from professional life to personal life. And just yesterday I met a person who said, oh yeah, I use Doodle in my school with my kids. We regularly vote for when do we do something with kids and so on. That's very interesting because I really meet people, and having millions and millions of, like we have more than 30 millions per month, and I really meet people who use Doodle, and that's interesting. But also what is interesting, we are not there immediately. And disclaimer, maybe another one, that evolution takes time. Evolution will take years. And today I will make an overview in historical context of Doodle too. Some of your companies may go through this path faster. Some of the companies might need slower evolution and so on. So level 0, usually I will say this level when we just work. Some small companies, startups, they don't need a lot of processes. Some bigger company, it might be a problem that you're already growing. Maybe you have investments or have a good market fit, and so you get growth, you hire, and you're still on the level 0. That will be a problem. So for companies who are small, level 0 might be okay. We just have individuals getting things done. We have one good developer, and this developer maybe takes care about the whole mobile application. Wow, wonderful. But at the same time, it's not scalable, it's not repeatable. And in the Kanban maturity model book, they use a metaphor of the pizzeria. Like if you're in a pizza restaurant or pizza delivery business, level 0 will mean that we rarely get the same result. So we really like, I have one person who knows how to cook the best pizza and another person who might be just like too junior for this. And as a result, we never can get the same result. So customers might be not happy, like visiting restaurant one day and another day might be significant difference in experience. So again, it might be okay for some certain age of the company. So by 2018, it was a very interesting situation. So the company Doodle was very, very small, less than 30 people in total. And that's including everyone outside of engineering. And at the same time, company was already 10 years old because the original model was based on advertisement. And somewhere around this time was decision to change company. We literally restarted company. I don't remember exact time. It was somewhere like end 18, 19. We decided to go in SaaS to make professional services, to make additional value to the user so they pay monthly for something that helps them. And we doubled our size since 2018. So of course, when we reference to 30 people, it was easy, but then it becomes more. In this year, we probably reached to the natural size that we don't need to grow that fast. But also it was interesting to see, it was happening before I joined, but also it was interesting to see some artifacts, to see some practices. So level 1, as I mentioned it, is the moment when you bring some methodology. And of course, often it's Scrum. It's very popular. People say, oh yeah, have you heard about Scrum? Let's work Scrum. And of course, cross-functional teams become more obvious and visible, but sometimes it could be really tricky how you split people in the teams. Do you have end-to-end value, or do you have some modules of the system, and so on and so on. It's also very hard, depends on technology you use. If you are in a non-IT business, maybe it very much depends on the ways of working, but in IT, it might be very much connected to microservice architecture, for example. So many companies who don't have flexible technology architectures that support this flexibility of the teams, at this moment, they might clash with the situations that dependency will not let your teams progress as you want. And in our case, we introduced Scrum. Actually, somebody introduced Scrum. I don't even know, is it a manager or somebody? I don't even think they ever had official class with Scrum, because you hire people, they know about Scrum, they start doing something and they call it Scrum. And of course, some teams say, oh yeah, we went beyond Scrum, so we just have a board. Nice. You see some funny charts. I was searching some artifacts from that time, and I found, when I joined the company, I found this funny velocity charts when it's really unstable, velocity goes down sprint over sprint because some dependency problems, unsolved stories tasks, they accumulate. And of course, like in the beginning, it's a boost, it's a transformation, everyone excited about Scrum, but then when you work longer, and in my case, we're talking about product company, and of course we aim for ongoing continuous value delivery. Some of you might be in service company, and I listened to some talks in the morning. Henrik was answering some question about project-based. So in this case, my advice is actually to look on the flow of projects in your company, to look on the flow of value creation. Because in our case, we can say a feature is a project, and it's a short project, of course, but then it's done and we continue, the same team continues maybe. And level 1, again, just if I look back, level 1, we see, it says, yeah, you have some teams might start looking to some better practices going beyond Scrum. So might be you have a very good Scrum, but you understand you cannot make it better if you don't bring additional practices, if you don't start looking to work in progress limits, to the flow management. And this is a moment probably now Scrum Org and some other organizations who are focused on Scrum, but they teach Kanban, because definitely there will be flow. There will be flow of value in your company. Maybe it's visible outside of one team. Might be it needed to coordinate dependency. Might be you have independent teams. In our case, also what was helpful, we tried to make independent teams. We've been inspired by Spotify model. Somebody was inspired by Spotify model. So we had squads, we had chapters, sometimes misunderstood. We later reformed teams, but at the same time, we already started investing in distributed. So we already had offices. So when Corona came in March 2020, the company was already working in the situation when people work from multiple places. So one team might consist of 3 locations, and that's might be additional secrets that helped us to go through 2020 without any like nobody noticed the difference. We just didn't go to office. Our office became a co-working, and at that moment, I was already intentionally helping organization, helping teams, and we started focusing on teams, and we started teaching. Actually, I never done any agile class, any Scrum class, but what I did with each team was a very short boot camp about Kanban, literally playing the game, and then another boot camp reflecting on the way of working. There's a so-called static system thinking approach to implement Kanban, and doing these 2 simple workshops was the biggest investment on the team level. But also to go through the level 2, it's important. You see, teams start thinking about what is value, how do we prioritize backlog, not just like product manager tells us, but also why product manager prioritize this way. We also see some practices, and a role of definitely Scrum Master is obsolete. We don't use Scrum. A role of Agile coach, yes, but coach means you help team grow. And in Kanban, there's a role of flow manager. So in Doodle, we've been thinking about how to combine it, because also it's important that in Europe, especially in Germany and Switzerland and other countries, people have to have a people manager. So in our case, we have to have a person who is a manager. And at the same time, if we put this person outside of the team, they will not have a connection. So whatever you do one-on-one, 360 reviews and so on, if you're not connected to the team, it's useless. But if you become a manager in the team, how does it affect the team mechanics, team behavior, and so on? In our case, we decided that we will do this experiment. So we have delivery manager role, and each delivery manager is a people manager and people coach. They're not telling people what to do. They're not responsible for prioritization by like telling, do this story. But of course, they are also process coach. So they are also agile coach who helps the team, not just individuals. And so far it works well. And of course, it was a big investment in such people. So my message to you is probably think about who are the people who help you to manage flow, and try to empower these people, because sometimes bringing to the next level is actually their initial will and some guidance. So the team itself might reflect on the practices later. The team has to mature in discipline, in following practices. The team has to say, it's the way we live. It was like this all the time. I don't even believe we did something else before. So in this case, it's always about coaching, like where we want to get where we are, and do we understand how to get there? And in our case, as I just said, going beyond level 1 to stable level 2 and beyond level 2, for me personally, was several factors. I mentioned it, delivery managers and coaches, but also data. I know like most of you use Jira, and we also use Jira, and especially since they moved everything to the cloud, it's probably mature very fast as an ecosystem. And we really try to make it well, but it doesn't give you the tools out of the box. And then I found Nave. Here I'm affiliated with them, but I definitely recommend. I don't give you a special link, so just go to the website or contact me if you need any explanation. But this platform sits on top of the Jira data we have, and it gives us all possible data information that we need to steer the flow, and especially even what we need to use to forecast. You see some Monte Carlo forecasting tool. So for some of you, if you know what it is, it gives a really good benefit if you are on a stable level 2, which means stable processes, stable flow of value, more or less predictable cycle time, and of course, short enough for your business. And just as example, many companies, when they are on level 0 or 1, they say, oh yeah, we use Scrum, we have 2 weeks iterations. Wonderful. But then if I look to the time from starting in the sprint and finishing, it may take 3 weeks, 5 weeks or more. And in this moment, I do understand, even if they say we use Scrum, they might not deliver value. And this is a problem I started to work with, as you've seen on some charts. So we did reshuffling of the teams. We tried to make them even more autonomous. Each team had a mission, each team had an area of the product and the business. Still, we are on the one platform. There are dependencies, there are cross-team dependencies, and we introduced regular checks, like weekly. And at the beginning, it helped us. So the teams were kind of saying, oh yeah, we need help from another team. So we started signaling each other that we need help. We started forecasting some roadmaps. So we did kind of quarterly planning. And at the same time, some teams, they understood that they're servicing other teams. They're servicing customer support, onboarding enterprise users. They're servicing other teams by providing APIs and some services for them. And for other team to be successful, they want this team to react quickly. But we are in a very flexible environment that we cannot predict how many weeks in advance they will need this help. So we started exploring this, and level 2 has definition, practices, and so on, but also it's a cultural change. So we started changing, and it was most of 2021 for us, but also for me personally, this is what many companies who say, oh yeah, we have Agile, we have some Agile teams from, they really struggle to go beyond this level. That's why let's maybe make a short Q&A if you have any questions so far, because I'm explaining this step by step using us as example. We still have time, and maybe you already have questions about Doodle, Kanban maturity model, levels 1, 0, 1, 2. I don't see any questions also. So feel free. If no questions, I can continue.
Yes, please. I don't have questions. I don't have questions actually, but I have a challenge for you. But
yes,
let's
please.
do it after you finish. Let's do it after you finish the topic.
Good. We will have another round of questions. Yeah. So again, exactly. So how do you work with estimations? Thank you. There are some questions coming. So again, that's a whole beauty. You don't need estimations. I was always advocating no estimates. And the best estimate we have is 0 and 1. 1 means we're more or less confident it will fit in 2-week cycle. So many teams, they kept 2-week cycles, but also some teams switch it to 1-week refilling cycle, replenishment. And the main idea was to have a reliable, stable, and short enough. So our agreement is that 2 weeks, 14 calendar days is short enough. And that was interesting journey through the 2021 for many teams to go from average 18, 20 something days to average 10 days. Some of the teams are very predictable, especially some of the teams I will show when they moved, like emerge at next levels, they started thinking about different classes of services and measuring different time. But to answer practically, if you use this tool and you have the statistical data from your team, of course, it's based on the team flow. And if it's predictable, stable flow, the team is super predictable. If it's not predictable, you will see it immediately. So these two charts gave my C-level management possibility to forecast one of the first major platform releases that we started. So the Doodle challenge in 21 was to literally redo the whole platform. Because as I mentioned it before we went into SaaS and so on, it was just a single, quite simple application, kind of monolith architecture. So of course it was a big investment to redo this. And of course it was something that you really need to do everything before you go live, because you cannot just say users who already using your platform for years and you just say, oh yeah, we downgrade everything to the new best experience and then you need to start from the scratch. No, we had enterprise users and so on. So in this case, we just started forecasting. We literally had a scope. We had more or less known cycle times. And based on this, it's pure math. It's just reference, it helps us. But at the same time, we kind of, we only do sizing. So we do sizing like small, medium, large. I think all of the teams, they kept doing this because they just need to recognize, but I'll talk about this a bit later. I see another question. What will be the first step to implement Kanban? And that's a very good question to level 0, because what Kanban people from Kanban University, let's reference to this body of knowledge, there's a wonderful posters explaining what is Kanban, and one of these moments is agendas, and agenda is start where you are now. That's a beauty of method, not methodology. So there's no methodology that tells you do that, you will get result. There's a thinking method, there's a practical aspect, so there's 6 principles, and of course some body of knowledge that say, okay, this principle on maturity level 0 might look like that, but on maturity level 3 or 4, it might look like that. So in your situation, Roman, doesn't matter what your team doing. You do Scrum, fine, start looking to the board end to end, start working this work in progress limits just to manage the flow and shorten cycle time. If you're already beyond that, as I mentioned it, many teams say, oh yeah, we canceled our bi-weekly sprints, we do Kanban, but they never had work in progress as a limit. And potentially this establishing this limit, consider it as one of the big breakthroughs for many teams, because they start thinking about their own capacity, their time, the energy they invest, and ability to do all the expectations. And in our case, I think we will never run out from ideas. And it's always supply and demand problem. So it's always problem of doing what is the best. So I hope I covered these 2 questions. Okay, I think I covered this. What practices, activities recommend to use? So just follow the 6 principles, basic understandings that you can read from short explanation. It's already the best. The more you practice it, the more you see it, you will find and recognize. And this is exactly the evolution. This is why I really like it's a natural evolution, because when you come to the next level, you start understanding, okay, we do visualizations, but at the same time, the flow on the board might represent different types of work. It might represent different priorities, different importance, different size, because if you have L size refactoring, how do you address this? You just do it. Do you want to keep it like visible? Yes, absolutely. Can you predict when it's done? Maybe not, but you can recognize when it takes longer than expected. And this is already give you something. So you already can steer, manage the flow. You still can deliver regularly. In our case, we do at least once a week release. So we don't want to have many releases. We have some enterprise obligations. We have some features that sometimes we just don't release. We have everything prepared and then somebody say, stop, we feel quality is not good enough. Let's spend another week and we fix it, do it better, do the back batch inside companies and so on. So this is exactly cultural maturity. In our case, it was maturity of the teams. And probably here it's important to go beyond level 2. You will need all the teams to get to this maturity level. Or maybe if we put it the other way around, you could say that your average company level will be always measured by your teams level. And if you have a lot of new fresh teams, level 0, 1, doing something from maturity level 3 possible. In my case, it was often augmented by my skills and me facilitating some of the cross-team activities, enabling others to get there. So I will say, doing something on next maturity level possible, read the poster or book or something, you will get inspired what you can do, how you can better visualize on the board, how you can better manage the flow, work in progress and so on. But at the same time, you do it step by step. I see some more questions coming and maybe Anna, we can park them for the second part. So what I wanted to say, did you want to ask a question?
Let's do it later on after you finish.
Good. I just need a few more slides. I really had a lot of ideas to tell, and then I decided, okay, I probably have to be short. I give you an overview of the model, but also some storytelling. So you see some examples, and this is again quote from the book. And in our case, 2021-22 was the moment of growth. So we had more people, more teams, but also moment of maturity. Some of the teams were stable enough. So we really believe in stable teams. We're trying to keep people together. So even if the new people coming, there's a main core part of the team who already have these practices. And of course, it's also interesting maturity. How do we onboard people? Because some of my teams, they went to a very advanced level. So their onboarding for new team members is actually advanced mini book. Maybe it's the same level of size and maturity like the official Kanban guide mini book, which is like around 10 pages or 12 pages. So in our case, maturity of the team was enabling further maturity. And we split some teams in 21, and it was also very interesting. So splitting less mature level, like the teams were just on level 2 getting, so splitting, restructuring, definitely downgrades. The team which is beyond level 2, already on level 3, splitting them will be an easy task because they're already a 15 people team, but they work well together. They know different classes of services. So they know that here's the roadmap items, here's a service for the business, here's a service for internal improvement projects and so on. What was interesting also in 21, my non-engineering teams got inspired. And we have people ops team as a single team, which is responsible for hiring, people operations, core HR and everything. But they started to use boards. They started to work as a team, not just like individuals acting in single domain. My finance team went into some disciplined way of working. My revenue groups, CX team, sales teams, and so on, they all went into some way of more systemic working, visible value creation for their team, for their value. And altogether across company, we started to use so-called upstream or portfolio Kanban. And it was the level of visibility of everything that happens inside company. Because as our CEO mentioned it many times, if you do something and you don't understand why, then please stop doing this and ask around. So if some product manager or whatever manager told you to do that, ask why. And if it's not visible, then it's probably wrong. So we started evolving this in end of 21, and now in 2022, it's still emerging. And one of the big contributions was data insight. So I mentioned the importance of data on the team level, on the flow level, but also it's very important, of course, on everything, on a business level, on a cross-team level. So in our case, it's a single Power BI dashboard, which is accessible for everyone in the company. Everyone can see our North Star, everyone can see our data. And if you're interested, you can go and see how each and every team works. So you can forecast based on their data and so on. And it's also important that previously we tried to split teams. We tried to say, okay, each team is independent. We don't need any scaling frameworks. We just have 6+ independent autonomous teams. But it's important. We're a single company. We're a single product company. We are not a company doing completely different businesses. So it means everyone in the company depends on each other, and we have a single flow. We have a single portfolio. And that was interesting change during this year. And here's what is important. I believe we're getting to the level 4. I'm really inspired because when I read what is here, I say we're almost there. But I will say maybe next year, I will be confident to say, yes, we are staying strong on the level 4. At the moment, it's more like aspiration for us. It's always unclear how do you transit, but it's clear that you passed. I will say we definitely passed level 2. Some of the teams may need to get stronger level 2 and get stronger level 3. Some of the teams are really even beyond level 3. In overall, as I said, some of the practices cross-team, they could be brought to the enterprise setup, and that also brings teams a little bit higher in the maturity. So that's my personal evidence. Somebody can challenge it. Somebody can say, I know some of my friends are Kanban trainers. They could probably give me feedback that no, I'm too optimistic. Or at the same time, I feel we do something better than many other companies. So this year, just recently, we found some interesting boosters in our practices. As I mentioned, it, visibility and cross-team portfolio was important. We found this tool important. It's just a beta, but we've got inspired by this tool somewhere in the summer, and it's really flexible. It's completely another Jira experience. It's another Jira, and it helped us a lot. And I assume we use this tool not as a team beyond this tool expected. So we really use it our way, which is disclaimer. But at the same time, some kind of visibility on this level upstream and everything becomes very important with more mature teams and more mature organization. And data scoring, everything becomes even more important. So you cannot just, the discipline level has to be very high. So using this pizza example, you really have to be in a serious business when customers can rely on you. They can rely on the time to deliver my order. You can do the good quality all the time, and you know the customer, so you know that people in the lunchtime will prefer quick buys, and in the evenings they will have different preferences and so on. So understanding this diversity, understanding your customers, I think it becomes very important. So, for example, our customer experience team is one of the main drivers, and because they are hearing feedback, they have data and everything, all of the insights that coming to the portfolio initiatives, they often inspired or commented by customer touching teams, support and success and sales and so on. So it's very interesting moment where we are now. And as I just said, maybe I have a visual thinking, but I think we're getting to the level 4. And officially in the world, there's not so many companies who are beyond level 4. So the model describes level 5 and level 6 as a very big aspiration. So at least for the moment, level 3 and 4 is my biggest inspiration. And once again, why I wanted to share this with you? Because many companies, they really struggle how to evolve, and they try to apply frameworks. But of course, every framework is a temporary help to start walking. And our job is to go beyond any framework. And of course, we need some practical hints, some best practices, but at the same time, we need to take them at the moment we are ready to take them. So this is last slide, recap of the whole Kanban maturity model in a short sentences, officially copied from materials of Kanban University. And I'm probably ready to questions. I see some, maybe Anna, you read them or you have your question.
Yes, please. Let's start from the questions in the chat and the Q&A first, and then I'll come back to what I wanted to ask you actually. Yeah, so the first question comes from Max. So Tim, can you please describe any examples of transition or consolidation practices from maturity level 0 to 1 that helped Doodle? I think the question is about specific steps that were taken.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned it, Doodle was mostly on level 0 when we had a small group of engineers working. So sometimes we had people with like one people team. And I think that was important that we moved to the teams, cross-functional teams, not just like team of backenders or front-enders, because at the beginning, when you have just around 10, 15 engineers at all, of course, they try to, okay, we are front-enders, we need to share knowledge, and there's a kind of single backlog, but we work together. And of course, it creates a problem because my user, you as a user, don't care about backend or front. You don't worry, like, what do we have somewhere deep in the system? So you just can use it or not, you like it or not. This was probably the big shift. As I mentioned, some of the teams were clearly identified to the goal. They really created a kind of new part of the product from the scratch. That was lucky pass. For some of the teams who were redoing the old product, it was kind of project-based, but the moment we really shifted the requirements, features, everything to the value-oriented, and the teams, we rearranged it to be like two equally independent teams. I think that were changes we've done somewhere on level 1 and maybe between level 1 and 2. I hope that's an answer. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim. And another question, again from the Q&A section. Do you have any Scrum events, meetings? If yes, do you see the value in them?
Okay, it's a very good question, and I really like the book Henrik Nieberg and his partner Matthias Karen did back in 2000, probably before 2010. I had privilege to translate this book into Ukrainian and Russian, and we been seeing that many people said, oh yeah, Kanban is easier, it has less meetings. If any of you go through official Kanban material or class, you will see so-called feedback loops or cadences. And at start, everything that Scrum offers, like planning in the beginning of cycle, reflection at the end of the cycle, kind of retrospective regularly to review the ways we work, and of course, daily synchronization. This is what all of our teams still have. We might call them Scrum meetings, we can call them Kanban meetings, we actually don't care how we call them, but we understand that the team inside has to coordinate, the team has to have a cycle. And some of my teams, they really keep even Scrum set up in Jira. So this is actually a very advanced Kanban team, but they say, we just like this Scrum as a time box. So they're way beyond Scrum, but they keep Scrum board in Jira for some reason. So answering this question, the same meetings that you have, again, start where you are now. They will change the meaning. Some of the meetings become obsolete. And for example, we have cross-company review. So we have show and tell, because each team, when they finish something, they demonstrate. So we don't need a special sprint review meeting, for example. But at the same time, we do dailies, retrospectives, and plannings. But plannings, for example, become combined with replenishment, with refinement. So in this case, we don't do 2 meetings maybe, and so on. But of course, we do refinements when we start a new big feature, and it's part of the flow. So all of these changes you will see with the evolution. Good. More questions, please.
Fine. Yes. Yes, please. I think Alex is interested about the strategic planning you have in your company. And I guess even the more interested about Kanban to be applied within non-IT business and companies or departments. So do you have any experience in that, Kanban in non-IT, and how does it work actually there?
Yeah, as I mentioned it, our non-engineering teams, they also use this. And at the same time, I would say, what problem do you solve? So Kanban really helps with the flow value creation, and it helps to manage the flow of work. So if you have a service team, like in my case, for example, people ops, they have a lot of tasks. And what helped them in their evolution, they started to see the flow of this task. They started to see types of work, and they started to see how the capacity, availability of the people and skills balanced by this flow. And they started to understand that there are clear difference, like there's a recruiting, and recruiting really requires special attention, special skills, and maybe special process. So they started to separate recruiting and everything else because we want a shortest response time to our candidates. And we want to have a best experience for the candidate, but at the same time, the deepest interview level I've seen ever in the industry. And still candidates say that we're absolutely happy with the process. It's not so long as compared to the other companies in Germany and so on. So it evolves, and non-IT teams can benefit from Kanban and evolution model, absolutely. But then be careful, because I don't want to say one size fits all. So feel free to contact me, maybe if you have maybe more details on this question.
Yeah, and my last, maybe we're not like done with all the questions, but we are running out of time, and I'd really like you to accept my challenge. So I'm looking at the question actually from Alex and from Taisia. It is about Kanban in non-IT, and it is about convincing. Yeah, so my challenge for you is imagine I'm a CEO of a milk production company, yeah, which is non-IT. I'd like to improve my business using Kanban, but I know nothing about Kanban except its naming. Sell me Kanban in less than 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, and I will do, like, let's say the answer, I will not. I don't need to sell you Kanban. That's maybe the difference between method and methodology. Methodology, yeah, we might need to sell it a little bit, maybe push, and that's what I mentioned. Going from level 0 to level 1 is where the most of transformation happens, and sometimes it's a push, like kick in the ass. But at the same time, Kanban helps evolving, and it's a disciplined way based on theory of thinking systems, complexity, and queuing theory. So in this case, if you feel the need, in our case, we felt the need to improve, and we felt the need to be ready for the challenges. And in this year, after we've done the major platform rebranding, everything in the beginning of the year, variability of ideas, variability of reaction to the market, like 3 times increased. And the next year, I forecast we will need even more flexibility. So in this case, nobody asked me to introduce Kanban. Nobody asked it in our company for Agile. I had a slide about this. And at the same time, we need agility. And then we started to work. So we started to work on the team level, and the path is long. That's maybe a disclaimer, because if you want to improve, you will need to work on it. And that's maybe the first start. Do you want to change? Do you want to improve? If yes, let's talk. If you feel okay at the moment, don't need to change. Let your competitors change faster.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. A bit of unexpected answer for me.
Thank you. You work with consultants for years, so you know that the main answer, it depends.
I expected, a fast and clear answer, as always, as everybody expects. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, but maybe the quote that survival is optional, right? Change is not needed. So in our case, what I believe survival for many companies, not only in Ukraine, is not optional, especially in Ukraine. And I'm really glad that, again, this event happening, we contribute back to Ukrainian community of professionals, and we help to strengthen Ukrainian teams. Happy to talk to any of you. Maybe you have personal question, maybe you need help and so on. And yes, let's do our companies better, and everything will be better sooner or later.
Thanks, Tim. We have a lot of thank you notes for you. Like that it was a very practical session, great ideas, a lot of useful stuff. So, well, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And glad to see next speaker. Hello to everyone I know in this group, and I'll be staying as a participant. So see
Welcome.
you. Bye.